So John says, if you have dreams, goals, or aspirations, you need to grow to achieve them. If you're like I was, and if you're like most people, you have one or more mistaken beliefs that create a gap that keeps you from growing and reaching your potential. Take a look at the following 8 misconceptions in growth about growth that may be holding you back from being as intentional as you need to be. So here's those 8 gaps that he just mentioned. There's the assumption gap. I think growth would just happen. The knowledge gap. I know I should, but I don't know how to grow. The timing gap. It's not the right time to begin. The mistake gap. I'm afraid of making mistakes. The perfection gap. I have to find the best way before I start. That's mine. Inspiration gap. I don't feel like doing it. I don't feel like doing it. The comparison gap. Others are better than me. Then the expectation gap. I thought it would be easier than this. I'm only going to be able to touch on a couple of these in this episode recording, but I figured I'd touch on the ones that I have the most familiarity with. Sorry, I just bumped my mic with my fuzzy chin. Yeah. I already mentioned that the perfection gap is mine. And the reason I say that is because, well, that's why I have such a hard time, honestly, starting. It's the perfection, and it's like perfection gap and the mistake gap are kind of intertwined for me. Another quick excerpt from the book for the perfection gap is, it's the desire to find the best way to get started in a growth plan. It's I don't know about you, but I like to find the best way to do something before I start. And the great thing that he brings up about mistakes is because I'm afraid to make a mistake. I can be so afraid to make a mistake that I get into analysis paralysis. I'm trying to learn everything before I start, and then I never start because I never know enough. And then there's a mistake gap where I don't start because I'm afraid of making a mistake. But one thing he says in the book is, a mistake is just another way to do things. A mistake is just another way to do something, even though it might be the wrong way. You'll learn from that mistake, and you can recuperate from that. You can learn from that mistake and try again, maybe make another mistake, try again, and keep moving forward. The reason he called these gaps, I think maybe you already picked it up, is because they're the gap between where you are and where you want to be. There are places that you need to grow in, and you're stuck. So my question to you here, and with that vague description so far, just have it in your head, like which growth gap is most active in your life right now? Which growth gap is most active in your life right now? There's the assumption gap, the knowledge gap, the timing gap, the mistake gap, the perfection gap, the inspiration gap, comparison gap, and the expectation gap. I think a lot of the times the expectation gap get a lot of people because maybe you start, but then you lose motivation because you thought it was going to be easier. You hit a roadblock and you thought it was going to be easier. So then then you shift back to your default activities, go back to your easier things, and you never continue your growth because you thought growth was going to be easy. You thought pursuing your calling, pursuing that thing that you think you've been called to do your entire life, you thought it was going to be simple because you were called to do it. And that's just not the case. Anything worthwhile is uphill. Anything worth pursuing is going to be hard.